All right. Thanks y'all for joining. Call this meeting to order. We've got our agenda for today. I'll also do a roll call. Then we'll have any adjustments to the agenda, have an opportunity for public comment, and then we'll hold a potential vote on the fiscal year 26 Q2 amendments. We don't have any other action items, and we'll meet November 19th and then make a motion to adjourn. With that, I'll start with the roll call. I see Jamal.
Yep, Jamel Wiley, Orange County.
Cool. Caroline.
Caroline Dwyer, Chapel Hill Transit.
Jay.
Muted. Jay Ickes, Go Triangle.
Ashley.
Ashley Oinby, City of Mebane.
Sarah.
Sarah Williamson, Orange County.
Stephanie.
Stephanie Trueblood, Town of Hillsborough.
Meg. Is there someone under Meg's name here?
Paul, I think I saw you join, but you're showing up as Meg.
I'm showing up as Meg. That's really odd. Okay, sorry. I guess that's me.
Paul Kingman.
Paul Black.
Oh, Paul Black. Okay, cool. Let me go ahead and rename. Madeline.
Madeline Galliano with the Triangle West.
And Tina. Tina.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
Cool. All right. I'll go next to adjustments to the agenda. Does anyone have any adjustments to the agenda? All right. Last call. Hearing none, we'll move to public comment. If there's any members of the public wishing to speak, please raise your hand with the Zoom feature there. All right. Seeing no members of the public wishing to speak, we'll move to our item of the fiscal year 26 Q2 amendments. I think there are multiple ways. I'll wait for someone to make a motion on what they would like to vote on, and then we can have any amendments from there and hold a vote at the end.
Did we receive any public comment?
I'm unaware of any. I'm afraid the staff working group administrator isn't here. Unless anyone else has received comment on the amendments, I don't believe we have.
Okay, well, I would make a, is this a motion to consider?
Yes, this would be
Okay.
a motion to recommend approval of a package of the amendments to the Board of County Commissioners and the Go Triangle Board. I think what exact amendments we're recommending is what could be different types of motions.
I see, okay. I mean, I have no issue voting on this as a package unless there's a need to go project by project.
Yeah,
I would
think
like
if
to go
folks,
project by project.
okay. I think if we can go project by project, I'd ask that we not take formal votes, but gauge where the group is at, and then at the end, make a motion for moving the amendments that we believe that the group is ready to move forward and hold a full one vote on that final package.
So you're not wanting to have discussion on these individually?
I think we can have discussion on them. I would like to not hold votes on them individually, just so we don't end up with a confusion like the last time.
It seems to, if I can, sorry, it seems to me it'd be really helpful if either Josh, you as the chair, or whoever was the staff person who submitted the amendment would just give 2 or 3 quick sentences of what the purpose is, and if it's changed from our last discussion, and then we could hopefully vote as a slate at the end, unless there's something that everybody feels is really problematic. I'm not seeing some of those other ones that we had the lengthy discussion about. So it may be that we are fine voting as a slate.
I can go ahead and pull these up. These are the ones that I saw released for public comment on the website. So I can go ahead, go item by item, and we can have discussion on them. And then if folks are ready to make a motion at the end.
Hey Josh, this is Jay. Quick
Mhm.
procedural, or not even procedural, housekeeping. I just wanted to note that our alternate Logan has joined, but I think he joined through my link. So he's showing up as Jay Hikus as well.
Okay. Cool. Let me
So
go
can
ahead
we
and
clarify who
rename.
the voting members are for Go Triangle? Because there are many representatives from Go Triangle on the call.
Certainly. So I'm the voting member and Logan is our alternate.
So
Yeah,
everyone
I'm-
else is doing as members of the public today.
Yeah, I'm just
The public
listening.
comment is over. Okay, I just want to be clear so everybody understands ahead of time. So thank you.
All right. We'll go ahead and go to the items. I'll ask the project sponsor to just share. I don't believe there have been any changes from the materials, but just to share again what the purpose of the amendment is.
Sure, and mine can actually kind of be done in the same discussion point because they're basically the same. So this first one is requesting to reallocate funding that was committed to projects for service improvements to the CW, the HS, the NS, and the D. And moving that funding to the North-South Bus Rapid Transit capital project to close a funding gap that emerged following our last cost estimate that was conducted over the summer. The CW and the HS have been funded in the transit plan since 2022 and 23 respectively. We've been unable to implement those service improvements just due to ongoing issues with finding operators to run the service. So we have actually reallocated that funding in the plan to other projects over the last few years, including some staff positions. I think our short range transit plan. So this is just exclusively for the time period 26 through 29. So using that funding that has been flat or committed for the service improvements and using it for the bus rapid transit project. We are submitting our formal grant request hopefully in December, which is about 2 months from now. We have to be able to show that 100% of our local match is committed at that time. So this would be a significant contribution to making sure that we can meet that goal before submitting that request, keeping that project moving on schedule. And then if you don't mind scrolling to the other one, Josh. Thank you. So the second amendment that we're requesting is funding that was allocated to the NS route as it exists today for vehicle purchases. Where it is it in there? It's listed on the summary sheet.
Okay. Yes, this
Uh,
making sure I'm showing the right
Okay.
one.
Yeah, these are the service improvements, but there should be one for the capital project. Here
There
it
we
is.
go.
Okay. Yes. So there were two projects that were identified for vehicle acquisitions for service that was funded through the transit plan for the route NS. This would we are requesting to use that funding for vehicle purchases for the NS BRT versus the NS route as it exists today. So again, these are both neither has a fiscal impact on the plan, the financial model. It is either moving funding from operations to capital or requesting which sort of a scope change for these NS vehicles for NS BRT.
All right. Is there any discussion on this topic? Cool. Doug, I saw your hand up during discussion, so start with you, then go to Sarah.
Doug, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Okay.
Okay,
There's
we'll start with Sarah, and then when Doug hops on.
I heard you say, Caroline, that there's a funding gap that emerged over the summer.
Yes.
And I understand that there's a gap, but it sounds like you're asking to move operations money to capital for a 3-year period at the very beginning of the period to cover the operations. Because this item says it's for operations for fiscal year 26 through 29, and we just started fiscal year 26. So I really have reservations about moving operating to capital in any situation, but especially when it's a multi-year operating fund. And it really sounds like you're just trying to move money to cover an obligation that's come up that the agency doesn't have the funding for. I'm a little concerned about the transit tax just being used to plug a hole. And that's really not what this money is supposed to be for. This was designated for operations.
Sure, I understand that. However, we can't use it for operating. And it sounds like Orange County is in a similar situation. I've seen that you've reduced service recently as well. So, you know, there's not a huge outstanding need at the moment for funding that was allocated for our service to provide enhancements. I wouldn't qualify it as plugging a hole. It's a one-time movement of funding for capital investment that, you know, is a regionally significant project. The implication of not approving this amendment is that we would not be able to submit our request. So, you know, that's a decision that everybody needs to be comfortable with as well.
But this is funding that was approved for a 3-year period of operation.
Yeah.
So for 3 years.
Yeah, we haven't been able to use it for the 3 years prior. So, and we don't anticipate having operators to run that service for the next 3 years either, to be honest.
All right. Doug?
Hey, thank you. I apologize for my technical difficulties. Caroline, can you, well, I'm going to ask two things. First, what exactly happened over the summer that changed financials?
Sure. So, as you probably know, as part of the Capital Investment Grant Program, we are required to submit milestones for the project as it advances. When we completed 60% design, and a new cost estimate was created. The last one was based on 30% design. So obviously some changes took place between those two time periods as the project becomes more refined. We did actually see significant reductions in some of the construction costs because the last time the project estimate was conducted was in 21 or 22 when we saw some pretty hefty inflation. The line item that increased was property acquisition costs. We do not anticipate that at this point there are going to be any additional changes to property acquisition needs for the project. So we're fairly
Mhm.
confident that we would not see, if we stay on schedule, we don't anticipate any additional cost increases, because the difference between 60% and 90% design is largely construction documentation, things like that, as opposed to actual design work. So we're not anticipating any additional increases that we feel would leave a similar, or generate a similar increase as the one that we saw this summer. So we're, basically hitting these milestones and updating the cost estimates as we go. This was probably the biggest one for us, with the most meaningful and substantive changes in inputs.
So the total of this is around $2 million, I think, with the request to transfer from operating to capital. It's totaled, so that would imply about a $10 million change in property acquisition costs.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
The total of what you're asking
Yeah.
for reducing those 4 out, so it's 3.7
Over 4 years. Yeah.
over the 4 years. So if that's matching federal investment, then
Yeah,
that
we're
means,
maxed out on our federal. So small starts, you can only ask up to $150 million, and we are there. So any additional funding doesn't quite align with that 20-80 split that you're describing.
okay. So I guess I haven't seen the costs represented in that kind of funding stack. And I think that just may be helpful information, because, it doesn't really matter where in the process is coming from that. Just what the ratios are would be helpful if they're split out by phase, the way, if that 3.6 is not actually matching anything else in your stack, that's helpful to know. That is not
I'm not
leveraging.
sure what you mean by that. I mean, yeah, some of it is, but like at some point, when you can only access $150 million in federal funding, there does come a point, if the project costs increase, beyond that being 80% of the project cost, where,
Okay, let me ask more directly. What was
Yeah.
the delta between 30% and 60% in right of way?
for right of way specifically, was probably about 20 million, but because we saw decreases in some of those other categories, the overall cost change wasn't that dramatic.
What drove a $20 million difference in initial estimates and actual the appraisals? Was it a
Yeah.
change in footprint?
There was some, so more refined design, 30%, basically the right of way is a pretty loose estimate, I would say. We can provide the documentation that went along with it that our contractor provided. It was a notable increase for us as well. It was not something we were anticipating. So there were several different factors that went into that change. And, a lot of it is depending also on the cost estimating and how they're doing that. There has been an increase in the appraised values in the last few years. So, and then the other thing that is really important to keep in mind is that number includes, I think, 3 different sets of contingencies and cost escalators. So that line item for right of way and property acquisition basically assumes that every property is going to condemnation, which is probably not a realistic scenario. And then it increases and escalates based on that for cost and time. And this is just the formula that's used for, these SCC workbooks that FTA requires. Then on top of that, there's an additional maybe it's more than that, I think it's 20% escalator on the appraised value. So we're already overestimating the appraised values just to build in that additional. Then on top of all of that, there's a 30% contingency on the entire budget overall. So it is a large number. However, at the end of the day, we still have to show that we have that worst case scenario funding.
Sure. Well, I guess, and that's, so the change in cost between 30%, 60% is, the net is this amount? Or other funds, did the town or
Yes,
Chapel Hill?
the town is also putting in additional funding. We're putting in about another 2 million. So
Because that's not clear. I don't
it
think
wasn't
that.
asked for. Sorry, like we had an amendment. I didn't include that information.
Okay, well, I think that would be helpful to, in the spirit of the project. And then my last question is, if Chapel Hill Transit is not able to hire operators to complete these planned service expansions, how are we going to staff and operate an enhanced corridor as a result of this BRT project? If it's been 3 years and we can't hire operators to fill that, how do we know in 3 more years that's going to change?
Because we already have those operators. This is replacing a service. This is replacing our NS service. There's not like a huge difference in the amount of operators that we need for that versus our current day NS service. So, you know what I mean? Like this is it's a plug and play into our current NS route.
So it's not change, the result of this is not changing headways or frequencies on the route. It's just consolidating stops and you're running the same number of vehicles that are bigger.
Yeah, so they're all the 60-foot vehicles, which makes a difference, which actually for us reduces the number of vehicles we have to have out on the road at any given time. But the peak frequency currently on the NS is around 8 minutes. And I think with this, you get to about 7.5. And that's essentially due to the, you know, the congestion easing with the bus only lanes, things like that.
So as a result of BRT, if your resources are going to be stable, there's not really going to be any repositioning of additional routes or service expansions beyond that corridor.
There will be repositioning of routes because we need to reduce some of the duplication of service that exists on that corridor currently. So there will be some, and this is what we're exploring through the short range transit plan, ways to integrate our local service that currently provides some like supplemental service on that corridor today to better tie into the BRT service and essentially eliminate some of the additional buses that are on that corridor right now, because, you know, as soon as you have a local bus in front of your BRT, you no longer have a rapid transit service.
Sure. Sure. I mean, there will definitely be some operational efficiencies.
Yeah.
I guess I want to make sure that as the public expects investments, not just in this, but in other places, that all of the operators are candidly addressing their staffing needs. And I know it's challenging and I know it's difficult. I'm not trying to, but just if we can't expand service now.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point.
Service later. And
I understand what you're saying.
Committing money to that, you know, in this case, we're switching from a service expansion to a capital project. And we're the elephant in the room to me is still, how is anyone expanding service if it's the human capital that's the barrier? So thank you. I appreciate that information. I feel much more informed.
Sure.
Okay. Any other discussion on this item?
I was just going to note that it's been a pretty routine practice of this body to recommend changing allocations between operating and capital. Not sure if Go Triangle's had any recently, but I know that other project sponsors, plural, have done that in the last several amendment cycles, going back maybe over the last 3 years. So this is a pretty routine activity for this group to consider. I'd also note that like NSBRT is a goal of the Orange Plan. Like the goal, one of the goals of this body, I believe, is to advance what's in the plan. And this has really been a central project of that plan going back to the original 2012 referendum. So I think, you know, as a role that this body plays as a technical staff, making recommendations, balancing our priorities and capacity and resources to deliver the goals of the plan. So I see this as a, you know, pretty straightforward step towards advancing what has been a central goal of the plan.
Jay, I understand that and I understand the past practices. However, I think it's disingenuous, and I'm not suggesting that Chapel Hill Transit has done this, you know, solely on purpose, but to program money in operations, then not conduct those operations and then say, oh, well, we didn't do that, so just give us the same amount of money for something else. Knowingly doing that. So I think regardless of the decision today, I just want to see that acknowledged going forward. This is not a reserve piggy bank. You know, we're telling the public we're going to program funds and something's going to happen, and then it just doesn't, I'm not sure, a good look. Just like if we said, well, we're going to program all this money and then North-South BRT doesn't happen. That's not going to be a good look either. We want to do what we say we're going to do with the money that we're telling the public we're spending on their behalf.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I hear that. And I think, you know, that's across all three of the plans, and you know, I've had pretty robust, not robust, but, you know, I think this is an issue, you know, we probably want to address at a regional level because, you know, to some degree this is happening, and, you know, across each of our transit plans. But I do agree with you that, you know, we want to make sure that, you know, what we're putting in the annual work program each year, you know, reflects our capacity to deliver. And I would suggest that, you know, we are talking, you know, $3.5 million. It's not a small amount. But I would say by taking this multi-year look, we are making that level setting. I think we're doing what you're asking, which is, you know, acknowledging that the capacity to deliver the operating may not be there in the next 3 years, and allocating it to a project that there is the capacity to deliver.
All right. Last call for discussion on the Chapel Hill NSBRT. I think, Caroline, you noted as a package. If there's any other discussion on the amendments submitted by Chapel Hill Transit. Hearing none, we'll go to the Route 800 amendment submitted by Go Triangle.
Hi there, yes. Jay Hikas, Go Triangle. 800, so we are requesting some additional funding partial year in fiscal 26. We would then submit a full year request through our 27. This is to add, you know, an additional vehicle at certain times of the day to the route. This will help us maintain the transit plan funded scope, which is weekday, midday service every 30 minutes. And then, you know, some of these other things noted here. There is a companion request that has been submitted to Durham County. One note here is the fiscal year 26 Q2 amendments in Durham did not move forward. So we will be requesting this again at following discussion in that group in fiscal year, or as a Q3 amendment. So that submittal, I think, is due at the end of next month. So we will be re-requesting this in Durham.
Wait, is there any discussion about the Route 800 project? I see Doug.
Thank you, Chair. Jay, if I can, just so I understand what's going on with this, the authority implemented some service changes and realized that the resources available weren't enough support to complete them correctly, or is that it in a nutshell? You
I would frame it as the transit plan, which, was completed largely in 2021, did not allocate sufficient resources to running the route in 2025. And this is something that, in 21, we thought 4 buses was sufficient. In 25, we realized it's 5.
okay? And you had a chance then in 20 as you started that implementation, there was operational examples of why it wasn't enough.
Right. And it's one of those things where, you can take the data that we have available, you can take, historic travel times in the quarter and you set a schedule. But once you start running the schedule, you get real world experience. And, there are, times of the day and days of the week where 4 buses is sufficient. But, anytime there's delays on 40 coming or going, this route is behind and riders aren't making their transfers, buses are leaving UNC. So this is an attempt to add some additional recovery time primarily between trips, so that those buses are so that each trip has a better chance of beginning on time.
What's the current on-time performance for this, assuming you're rolling out the 4 buses every day?
Give me 1 second. I can pull up.
It can be roughly. I mean, I'm assuming it's not great if you're asking for a 5th bus.
That's right. Yeah, if you give me just a second, I can give you data from the month of October.
Cool. I think if you can provide that after I'd see Sarah's hand is up.
So I'm curious, because when we talked about this before, I asked a couple of questions, Jay, about timing and when this change would possibly go into effect. Have you already made these service changes at this point? And then the other question that I had previously was what happens if Durham doesn't approve, and where does that leave this request? And do we feel that impact how long you maintain service, or what you do if you don't get the full funding from Durham? Are there going to be impacts later in the year that we're just delaying those types of things? What are the choices and trade-offs here, given that where they are?
Yeah, certainly. So we have, not yet made a service change to address this. We would like to. The direction we got from Durham was that we should resubmit in Q3, and that if we need to make a change to address on-time performance, they're willing to include a half year of funding so that we can reimburse against that increased amount. There was a fiscal year 25 reimbursement error on Route 800 that the county staff work group administration in Durham County was interested in resolving and understanding the budget for Route 800. That has been resolved. So our understanding is that this will be considered again in fiscal year 23 now that we've resolved, or fiscal year 26 Q3 amendment now that we've resolved that reimbursement question. So I don't want to speak on behalf of Durham staff work group members who are not in the room, but we will have an opportunity to consider this again in a similar, 1 quarter delayed timeline.
All right. Is there any other discussion about the Route 800? Jamal?
So I just have a quick question. Jay, there's no other alternative funding sources, such as like 5307 to make these necessary improvements?
So right now, Route 800 is 60% funded by Go Triangle, 20% by Orange, 20% by Durham. So yes, the way that the transit plan to fund service is we set a baseline of what that service was back in the case of Durham and Orange. I believe it's 2013 because FY14 was the first full year of tax collection. And then what we have done in the past is anything that is above that baseline is a transit plan funded expansion. And I believe that's consistent across all three operators.
Jay, were you able to find those October numbers?
I had to reset a password, but I am pulling those up. If you give me just another 30 seconds here, I'll have them.
No problem.
While we get that set up, just for administration's sake, if folks are comfortable doing the Orange County name changes in one package, I think that's reasonable. I think that would leave us with 2 more amendments to discuss.
I think that sounds reasonable.
Question, Josh? Sorry.
Hmm?
What was your question?
No, don't think I had a question.
Oh,
I know
okay.
Jay's looking up the question of the on-time performance for Route
Okay.
800. The administration was just name changes in one package for discussion.
I think my only question on that was, does a point of contact change require an amendment?
No, it does not. It should
Okay.
not have been on the list initially. I think that was an administrative error. But
I mean, I think if it doesn't need to be voted on, then we can just,
but now it's here, so I felt like
Okay.
we should see it through the process for the sake
Gotcha.
of not creating questions as to why it came off.
Yep.
If you all will play along.
Sounds good.
So Jay, you're confident, Jay posted those numbers in the chat. You're confident this improvement will get you over the 85% on-time performance?
Yes, and I have another way of presenting the data, which is 85th percentile trip times, and this will get us, and then also late trip starts. So this will reduce both of those, which should get us to 85%.
Okay. Assuming we're going to continue funding this, I think can we check in once you have meaningful data after the 5th bus has been deployed and kind of see where it's at, because we certainly want to make sure the resources are available to meet the goals of the transit plan.
Yeah, absolutely. We can report on-time performance. Probably the next best time to do that is going to be next spring, because traffic is going to drop down over November, December, January, but February, March, April will be our next comparable peak congested period.
I know October is also the primo month, right? So you got all the holidays, and so thank you for that. I'm not trying to grill you. I'm just trying to make sure that we understand what the performance you're trying to obtain with this additional funding.
Absolutely. Happy to provide. Go ahead.
Can you answer the question about what happens if this was to be approved by Orange County now and not by Durham County, what you do with that allocation?
So what we would do is, make the service change. If we're able to approve it by Orange, we would, make the service change our next available service change date, and then submit the request to Durham, and then we'd reimburse the half-year cost roughly following the service change back to Durham. So, I mean, right now, I mean, the way that the transit plan operating budgets are set is that it's based on an annual allocation. We're not, you know, we as operators are not restricted to say 25% in any one quarter. So in Durham, we would request the additional amount once we make the service change.
You would draw down extra essentially early in the year.
Right.
Jay, but what happens if Durham doesn't approve that service change?
So if Durham does not approve it, then, I mean, there's a number of places or a number of options out there. So the first is at the end of the year, across all three of our transit plans, operators have the ability to make budget transfers within the same ordinance. So in orange, we have a capital and operating ordinance. So operators are able to request reallocations among ordinances. So if I have another route or another operating project that is lower, that would be the first source. The second source would be, we would request the maximum available that's in the plan, and then we'd have to cover it from GoTriangle. And then we'd have to have a discussion or decision of, okay, well, if we're not going to get this funded through Durham, then perhaps we need to reduce the scope of the project. So, reduce the amount of service, reduce the headway, something to fit the project within its budget.
All right. Last call for Route 800 discussion.
No, I appreciate all that, Jay. As you know, we're the signatory on both Durham and Orange ILAs. If we're voting for funding in one county, we want to make sure that the other county provides the resources effectively too. So thank you for that additional explanation.
And so just the last question that I have, Jay, is then, that's a plan to get you through this year. What would you do next year? Would you continue to try and use more funding from Orange, or would you drop the service back?
So if we were
to not have funding on an ongoing basis from Durham, where would that put the Orange money if we were putting in more?
Yeah, so we want to make sure. Yeah, I think it's a good question. Sorry to cut you off. If I understand it, it's what would we do ultimately if Orange funds it and then Durham makes a decision not to? So I think in fiscal 27, what we would do then is have a conversation with both plans. This is a route where the expansion service is funded 50-50. If there's disagreement about what the service should be on this route, we would need to reach that agreement. So I mean, ultimately, if Durham did not want to fund more service on this route, then we would drop that request back in Orange as well. I don't think we would want to be in a place where the expansion funded on this route, the percent of expansion funded on this route differs between Orange and Durham, because historically we've kept those services at 50-50 between Durham and Orange.
Would you be comfortable with something of that nature being a condition of the approvals, that it would have to be reevaluated if it's not approved in Durham for next year?
Yes, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next item for discussion is GoTriangle service planning staff. Got a number of GoTriangle staff on that there. Whoever wants to discuss it.
Yes, this is me again. So as noted here, in the fiscal 26 work program, the GoTriangle staffing line items do not include funding for the service planning group. There are 4 of us, as noted here, and in the request, we do spend substantial time and effort as a service planning team developing and maintaining a service, such as ensuring that we are adhering to our on-time performance standards. So this is a request for a third of a FTE. I think it worked out to 34%, to be funded a full year in 26 and then continue into funding in 27. I did do a calculation based on GoTriangle's staffing that is funded by the Orange plan. This represents about an 8% increase in GoTriangle staffing overall funded by the Orange plan.
Do you have any discussion on this item?
One additional note is similar to the 800, Durham deferred consideration, or Durham did not vote to move amendments forward in Q2. So this is one that we will be submitting in Q3 as well. This one, unlike the 800, I think there's, again, I don't want to speak for Durham members that are not on the phone, but this one, my sense was that this may not be amenable as an amendment to the Durham plan. The path may be the FY27 work program.
Does that mean you would operate your service planning group under resourced and oversubscribe the existing staff, or does that, what does that look like, Jay?
I think what that would mean is the cost allocation of the service planning group is not split among our plans evenly. So right now, Wake pays for 1, Go Triangle pays for 3. So the goal is to have Durham and Orange collectively pay for 1, again, based on allocation of our expansion hours across the 3 plans.
Okay.
So this is not, to be clear, this is not a net new hire. This is allocation of existing costs based on level of effort across baseline service and expansion service.
So this is something you're already doing that you realize is eligible for reimbursement.
Correct.
Is there any further discussion on the service planning staff amendment?
There's a reference in the backup materials, Jay, to a staffing study by Wake. It's challenging for us to support a staffing study that we didn't participate in. I just want to note that.
Yeah, understood.
That's just a challenge.
Last call for comments. All right. Last one is the name change. I know we had a little bit of early discussion on it. Is there anything else to add, Sarah?
No, just want to see these through. I don't think that they actually needed to be amendments, but we just want to keep the process moving instead of changing it midway. You all are agreeable. Thank you.
Any discussion on this item? All right. Since we've discussed all amendments on the agenda, I'd ask for a motion on what the staff working group would like to forward for recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners and the Go Triangle Board. If there are amendments that folks would or would not like to include, and then we will run a process of votes on the different motions if there are multiple motions, and try to be clear about which one we're voting on at each time. So. Do we have any motions to move amendments forward?
I would make a motion to move the package of amendments forward.
Support for discussion.
All
I
right.
would second that.
Have a second by motion by Caroline, second by Tina. I have a motion for a full package. Does anyone have any amendments to the idea of moving the full package forward?
I would still prefer that we vote on these individually.
I do hear that. I think given the confusion at the last one, I prefer to make a motion on the full package that we are moving forward with amendments to take things out if needed. So.
I think we should vote to move it forward with the conditions that were discussed for the Route 800 improvements being added in there.
All right. Have the amendment for the language around the Route 800. Last call for amendments to the full package of amendments. All right, hearing none. First, I'd like the group's discussion or the group's vote on adopting the amendments to the Route 800. That is the only thing I'm asking y'all to vote on. The amendments that specifically specify that Route 800 funding will include some evaluations of on-time performance and will be reevaluated if the Durham Staff Working Group or if the Durham Transit Plan does not fund a similar share of this service improvement. I will do a roll call vote. Jay?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
Caroline?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Jamel?
Aye.
Tina?
Aye.
Madeline?
Aye.
And I will ask Doug if you can vote. You are a valid alternate, and TW Triangle West has 2 votes, given that we have a member and an alternate. So.
Yeah, we're gonna need to straighten out that paperwork at some point. Aye.
All right.
And
With that being,
go ahead, Josh. I do have a quick comment after.
okay, I was going to move to the full motion for the package. So if you have a comment, now might be the time.
Quick question. Did you call Logan?
Oops, sorry, Logan.
Aye.
Apologies.
I'll mention what I was going to mention after the next vote.
Okay. For the full package of amendments with the amended language on Route 800, this includes the Chapel Hill BRT North-South, route and its BRT vehicles, Route 800 improvements, service planning staff for Go Triangle, transit service software, Hillsborough Circulator, ICES, continuation of fixed route and paratransit, and mobility on demand, all for Orange County. Roll call vote. Jamel?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
Tina?
Aye.
Caroline?
Aye.
Sarah?
No.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Logan?
Aye.
Madeline?
No.
Doug?
No.
And I'm an aye. So the motion passes 8-3. All right. Our next meeting is November 19th. Doug, I think you had one more thing before adjournment.
I just wanted to mention that something that came up in our regional transit plan partners meeting yesterday was that that would be very helpful if we had a project modification procedure that did not require reasonable adjustments to the program to go through the full amendment process. Saying that would have handled some of the business today. So I just wanted to mention that hopefully that'll be in the works and that can help out in the future. So.
All right. Have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Jay? Oops, sorry. You're muted.
Sorry. Raised my hand, but didn't unmute. Just wanted to confirm dates moving forward because I believe our procedure is this goes to the Orange County Board of Commissioners prior to Go Triangle Board. believe the date this is slated, would be slated for Go Triangle Board is December 17th. So just wanted to confirm that there is a available county commissioners date prior to the 17th.
I believe so. Sarah?
If this is submitted before noon today, which I don't have very much time on at this point, then it will go on the December 9th agenda for the county commissioners.
Okay. And I'll be in touch. I think there's been some discussion amongst managers on that as well. So. All right. I have a motion to adjourn from Caroline. I'll second. All in favor, voice vote, please say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.